In the village of Umuahia lived a man called Obinna. People called him Obinna the Stomach. He was not the tallest or richest man, but when it came to food, nobody in the whole village could beat him. He could eat yam in the morning, swallow fufu in the afternoon, drink palm wine in the evening, and still complain that he had not eaten enough. Children laughed at him. Women shook their heads whenever he passed. Men warned their wives, if Obinna enters this house, hide the soup pots. But still, he always found a way to get food. Obinna had one weakness. He could not say no. Even if he saw akara in someone's hand, he would ask for it. If he smelled fried plantain in the air, he followed it like a goat. He ate at burials, at weddings and naming ceremonies, and even at quarrels. If two families were fighting and food was served, Obinna forgot the fight and joined the food. One day, his neighbor Ngozi cooked a pot of fresh egusi soup. The smell spread through the compound. Before she could even serve her husband, Obinna pushed open the door laughing and said, "Ngozi, my sister, let me taste and make sure you put enough salt." Ngozi shouted, "Obinna, leave my kitchen." But it was too late. He dipped his hand inside the pot, scooped meat and ate. Ngozi almost fainted. From that day, gossip began in the village. People said Obinna's stomach would push him into trouble one day, but Obinna only licked his lips and laughed. The trouble with Obinna was not just that he ate too much, it was that he had no shame. If a visitor was served kola nut, he would grab it first. If a family was roasting corn by the fire, he would show up smiling and say, "This fire is warm, let me join you." Then he would stretch his hand and take the corn. The villagers grew tired of him. They tried different tricks for him to stop. One woman, Mama Nneoma, cooked bitter leaf soup without washing the leaves. She left the pot uncovered, knowing Obinna would come. As expected, he entered her hut, greeted her quickly, and scooped a big ball of eba into the soup. He swallowed it and almost choked. His face twisted, but he still said, "Mama Nneoma, this soup is very good. You know I like bitter taste." Then he took another swallow. Children laughed until they rolled on the floor. Mama Nneoma shouted at him to leave, but Obinna carried the last piece of meat and walked away. Some men in the village began to complain during meetings. "This man will finish all the food in this village one day," they said. But others laughed and said, "Leave him, his stomach will be his punishment." Even Obinna's wife, Ada, suffered. She cooked for her children, but by the time they came to eat, the pot would be empty. Ada cried often, telling neighbors, "I am tired. My husband eats like 50 men. What will I do?" But Ada did not know that Obinna's real downfall was not yet here. The day he touched food meant for the spirits, his life would turn upside down. One market day, the village square was full of life. Women displayed baskets of palm nuts, yams, dried fish and pepper. Children ran about shouting and chasing one another. The drummers beat their drums and traders haggled loudly. Obinna was there too, of course. He walked around the stalls not to buy but to taste. At one stall, he dipped his hand into roasted groundnuts. At another, he picked fried akara and said, "Let me check if it's well cooked." At the meat seller stall, he grabbed a small piece of meat and smiled. This goat was strong, but it was sweet. The trader shouted, but what could they do? If they pushed him, he would laugh and move to another stall. Everyone knew Obinna never carried money to the market. His stomach was his only currency. That afternoon, a group of elders gathered under the big Odala tree. They were preparing for the New Yam Festival. It was the most sacred event in Umuahia. During that festival, the first harvest of yam was offered to the spirits before anyone could eat. The elders planned what food and sacrifices would be placed at the shrine. Obinna, who had been eavesdropping, licked his lips. He heard the elders mention roasted yam, palm oil, kola nuts, palm wine, and even bushmeat. His eyes widened. He thought to himself, "This festival food will be very sweet, oh, I must find a way to taste it." That night, Obinna lay on his mat, unable to sleep. He imagined the roasted yam dripping with oil. He imagined the kola nut shining red. He imagined the bushmeat tender and soft. His wife at that turned and asked, "Why are you so restless?" Obinna only replied, "Sleep, woman, you will not understand." But in his heart, he had already made a dangerous decision. The day of the New Yam festival came. The whole village gathered in their finest wrappers and beads. Drums sounded, flutes whistled, and dancers filled the square with energy. Everyone was happy, for yam was life in Umuahia. The chief priest, an old man with white chalk on his body, led the elders to the shrine of the spirits. There, under the tall iroko tree, they placed the sacred food: roasted yam, palm oil in a calabash, kola nut, bushmeat, and a pot of palm wine. The priest raised his hands and prayed loudly, calling on the spirits of the land to bless the people. The villagers watched in silence, for it was a serious matter. No one dared touch the food until the priest finished and the spirits had accepted the offering. Afterward, the food will be left at the shrine overnight. By morning, it was believed the spirits had taken what they needed, and only then could the leftovers be removed. But Obinna stood at the back of the crowd, his stomach rumbling. He stared at the steaming roasted yam. He watched the oil glisten in the sun. His mouth watered so much that he almost drooled on his wrapper. When the ceremony ended and people began to dance, Obinna's eyes never left the shrine. He told himself, "These spirits do not have mouths. Why waste food here? I will just taste a little, nobody will know." That evening, while others were busy drinking and dancing in the square, Obinna sneaked quietly towards the shrine. His heart beat fast, but his stomach was louder than his fear. He whispered to himself, "Just small yam, just small oil, that's all." But the spirits were listening. When darkness covered the village and the moon shone above the trees, Obinna crept closer to the shrine. The night was silent. Even the crickets seemed to pause, as if waiting to see what would happen. Obinna looked left and right. Nobody was there. The villagers were still at the square, singing and dancing. He rubbed his hands together, his eyes shining like a thief's eyes. He reached the wooden platform where the sacred food was kept. The roasted yam sat there, still smelling sweet. The palm oil shone red in the calabash. The bush meat looked tender, and the pot of palm wine called his name. Obinna whispered, "Spirits, forgive me, I only want a taste." Then he broke a piece of yam, dipped it into the oil, and swallowed it quickly. The moment it touched his throat, a strong wind blew through the shrine. The iroko tree ground as if it was alive. The calabash shook. The pot of palm wine rattled. Obinna froze. His hands trembled, but his stomach betrayed him again. He grabbed another piece of yam, then a slice of meat, and chewed fast. Suddenly, a voice echoed from the trees. "Who eats this food of the spirits?" Obinna dropped the meat and looked around. His legs shook, but he could not run. The voice came again, deeper this time. "Who dares eat what is not his own?" Obinna tried to speak, but his mouth was full of yam. The spirits had caught him. Obinna stood frozen at the shrine, his cheeks still full of yam. The wind grew stronger. The leaves of the iroko tree rattled like 1,000 hands clapping. The pot of palm wine tipped and spilled onto the ground. "Obinna the stomach," the voice thundered. "You have disrespected the spirits. You have eaten what is not yours." Obinna dropped to his knees. His wrapper slipped off his shoulder, but he did not care. He tried to speak, but the yam in his mouth would not go down. His throat tightened. "Please, great spirit," he managed to mumble. "I was only hungry." The spirits laughed, a sound like thunder roaring in clouds. "Hungry? You eat everywhere. You steal from friends, neighbors, even your wife and children. Now you dare steal from us?" Obinna trembled. "Forgive me, oh, I will not do it again." But the spirits replied, Your stomach will teach you a lesson no man can forget. Suddenly, Obinna felt a sharp pain in his belly. He rolled on the ground, clutching his stomach. He groaned and cried, but nobody came. His voice was swallowed by the night. By the time he staggered home, his belly had swollen like a drum. His wife Ada screamed when she saw him. "Obinna, what happened?" she asked, but he only lay on the ground, groaning. The villagers would wake in the morning to discover that the sacred food was gone and Obinna was swollen. And from that day, his trouble would begin. By the morning, the whole village gathered at the shrine. The food was gone, the calabash was empty, the yam, the meat, even the palm wine, all finished. The chief priest's face grew dark. He raised his staff and shouted, "Someone has insulted the spirits." The villagers gasped. Everyone in Nneoma here would not dare such a thing. They looked at one another, whispering. Meanwhile, in Obinna's compound, Ada sat crying. Obinna lay on the floor, his stomach like a calabash. He groaned loudly, sweating and unable to stand. Neighbors rushed in. "What happened?" one asked. Ada shook her head. "I don't know. He came home last night like this." But the children of the compound began to murmur. One of them said, "I saw Obinna going towards the shrine when people were dancing." Another added, "Yes, I saw him sneaking near the Iroko tree." By the time the elders arrived, the news had already spread. They entered Obinna's hut and found him rolling on the floor, groaning. The priest raised his hand and declared, "It is him. He has eaten the food of the spirits." The villagers shouted in shock. Some laughed bitterly, saying, "We warned him. His stomach will put him in trouble one day." Others shook their heads, pitying him. The priest bent down and told Obinna, "You have brought a curse on yourself and on this village. Until you confess and beg the spirits, you will not know peace." Obinna cried out, "I only wanted a taste, just a tiny little yam." But the spirit had already decided his punishment. That night, Obinna could not sleep. His stomach groaned like a talking drum. Each time he tried to rest, the pain twisted him again. He begged Ada for water, then begged for palm oil, then begged for herbs. Nothing worked. By midnight, strange things began to happen. Whenever he saw his eyes closed, or he closed his eyes to sleep, he saw yam chasing him in his dreams. Huge pieces of roasted yam rolled after him like boulders, shouting, "Eat us, Obinna, eat us." Then bowls of soup appeared, pouring themselves over his head. He woke up screaming, sweating, and clutching his belly. Ada sat beside him, wiping his face with a cloth. "Obinna, confess properly," she whispered. "Go to the shrine and beg." But Obinna shook his head stubbornly. "No, Ada, if I confess, the whole village will laugh at me forever. Let me endure. The pain will pass." But the pain did not pass. The next morning, he staggered to the market square. He thought maybe eating would help. He begged Mama Ijeoma for a piece of akara. She gave him one, but the moment it entered his mouth, his stomach roared like thunder. He bent over, groaning. The akara forced itself out of his mouth whole, as if his whole body now rejected food. The villagers stared in shock. Some laughed, covering their mouths. Others whispered, "The spirits have cursed his stomach. He will eat no more." For a man called Obinna the stomach, this was the worst punishment of all. Days passed and Obinna grew weaker. He was still unwell. Even water made him groan. The man who once lived only for eating now sat like a dry stick, his wrapper loose around his shoulders. Children began to mock him in the village square. They sang, "Obinna the stomach. Food, he has eaten the food of the spirits. Yam chaser, meat grabber." They clapped their hands and laughed until their mothers took them away. Ada wept every day. She begged the elders to forgive him. She even took him to the native healer, but the healer shook his head. "This spirit is not from man. This sickness is not from man. It is from the spirits. Only they can free him." The elders called a meeting. Some argued that Obinna could be cast out, for he had brought shame to Omahia. Others said he should be given a chance to confess publicly and beg for mercy. The chief priest listened and then said, "We will not act yet. Let the spirits finish what they have started." Meanwhile, Obinna's hunger tormented him. At night, he sneaked into the kitchen, trying to swallow boiled yam, but the food refused to stay down. He spat it out, crying. He tried to drink palm wine, but it burned his throat. His body no longer wanted what his heart craved, and still in his dreams, yam, meat, and soup mocked him. They danced around him, chanting, "Obinna, eat us if you can. Obinna, eat us if you can." Obinna began to realize that this was not just punishment. It was a curse that could end his life if he did not humble himself. By the 10th day, Obinna could barely walk. His legs shook under him and his voice was weak, yet his eyes still followed food whenever it passed. When neighbors carried bowls of soup, he sniffed the air like a starving human being. But the moment he tried to taste anything, his stomach twisted and forced it out. Ada could not take it anymore. She marched to the elders and said, "If my husband dies, it will only bring shame to us. Let him confess, let him beg the spirits before they finish him completely." The elders called Obinna to the square. They placed him before the villagers. The chief priest stood tall with his staff. "Obinna the stomach," he said, "tell us the truth. Did you eat the food of the spirits?" Obinna tried to deny it at first. He said, No, it was not me." But the crowd shouted angrily. Some even threw sand at him. Then in his weakness, he broke down. "Yes," he cried. "Yes, I ate it. I could not stop myself. The yam smelled too sweet. The meat was calling my name. Forgive me, I will never do it again." The square went silent. Then the priest said, "Words are not enough. You must go back to the shrine, confess with your own mouth, and beg the spirits. Only then can you be free." Obinna fell to the ground, trembling. His body was still painful. He knew the road to the shrine would be the hardest walk of his life. The next morning, the whole village followed Obinna to the shrine. Some came to see if he would survive. Others came to laugh at him. Children ran ahead, singing songs about his greedy stomach. Obinna staggered, supported by Ada on one side and his brother on the other. They all wanted to watch his disgrace. When they reached the Iroko tree, the chief priest raised his staff and said, "Kneel." Obinna dropped to his knees, groaning. The priest spoke loudly so that all could hear. "Obinna the stomach, speak to the spirits, tell them what you did." Obinna raised his hands. His voice cracked as he confessed, "Great spirits of Omahia, forgive me. I ate your yam. I drank your wine. I took your meat. I was greedy. I could not even stop myself. Please have mercy." The wind rose, shaking the branches of the Iroko tree. The villagers gasped and stepped back. Then a voice boomed from above. "Obinna, you have confessed, but greed is not forgiven by words alone. From today, you will carry your hunger as a burden. You will crave food, but it will turn against you. Only when you learn to give, not take, will this be lifted." Obinna fell flat on the ground, weeping. Ada cried beside him. The villagers whispered to one another. Some pitied him. From that day, Obinna's punishment truly began. Life became unbearable for him. He stayed unwell. He sat in front of his hut, staring at people carrying bowls of soup and plates of yam, his eyes red with hunger. But whenever he tried to eat, his body rejected it. The villagers mocked him without mercy. When someone roasted corn, they called, "Obinna, come and eat," and laughed as he ground. When a child licked palm oil from his spoon, they waved it in front of him and shouted, "Obinna the stomach, food thief of the night, yam of the spirit stuck in his throat tight." They sang it everywhere until Ada begged them to stop. But not everyone laughed. A widow named Mama Ifoma pitied him. She brought herbs and said, "Obinna, instead of grabbing food, try giving food. Share even the little you have. Maybe the spirit will soften." Obinna frowned. "How can I give when I am hungry myself?" Mama Ifoma shook her head. "That is the lesson. If you never learn to give, you will never be free." Obinna ignored her advice. That night, he sneaked into a neighbor's farm to steal roasted yams again. But the moment he swallowed, his stomach twisted worse than before. He fell rolling on the ground until he vomited everything. It was clear The curse was real. The spirit would not release him easily. Obinna grew thinner as the weeks passed. His swollen belly remained, but his arms and legs shrank like sticks. People no longer feared him. Instead, they avoided him, saying, "If he comes near our food, the spirits may follow." His wife, Ada, was exhausted. She begged the elders again, "Please, my husband is going to hurt himself. Is there no way to save him?" The priest shook his head. "The spirits have spoken. Until Obinna learns the meaning of sacrifice, nothing can change." At first, Obinna tried to survive by stealing food secretly. He sneaked into kitchens, licked soup, and ate everything he saw. But each time, his stomach rebelled, forcing the food out. His growls woke the whole compound. Soon, even Ada grew angry. "Obinna," she said one night, "you have brought shame to this family. Your greed has destroyed our peace. If you will not change, I cannot continue suffering beside you." She packed her things and left with the children to her mother's house. Obinna sat alone in his empty hut, clutching his belly, weeping. For the first time, he understood the pain he had caused others, all the food he had snatched without thinking, all the hunger he had caused his own family. It returned to him like a shadow. That night, he lay on the floor and whispered, "Great Spirit, teach me how to give. Teach me how to stop this hunger." And for the first time, his dreams changed. Instead of yam chasing him, he saw himself handing food to children. Their laughter echoed in his ears. When he woke, a strange thought came to him. Maybe Mama Ifeoma was right. The next morning, Obinna dragged himself to Mama Ifeoma's hut. She was pounding cassava when she saw him. She almost chased him away, thinking he had come to beg for food again. But Obinna raised his hand and said, "I did not come to take. I came to ask. Teach me how to give." Mama Ifeoma studied him for a long time. Her eyes were sunken. She sighed, "If you are serious, start small. Help me pound this cassava. When the food is ready, we will share it with those poorer than us." Obinna groaned, but he lifted the pistol. His weak arms struggled, sweat poured, and the pistol almost fell. But the children around him laughed. But for the first time, Obinna did not care about laughter. He continued pounding until the cassava was smooth. Later, Mama Ifeoma cooked fufu with vegetable soup. She gave Obinna a bowl. He stared at it, afraid his stomach would reject it. Mama Ifeoma stopped him. "Not for you. Carry it to that widow down the road." Obinna hesitated, but he obeyed. He staggered to the widow's hut and handed her the food. The woman's eyes widened. "Obinna, giving me food?" She blessed him, and her children clapped. Something strange happened. That night, Obinna felt less pain in his stomach. For the first time in weeks, he slept without rolling on the ground. The spirits were watching. They had seen his first act of giving. Obinna woke the next morning and felt lighter. His belly was still big, but the sharp twisting pains had calmed. He sat up slowly, touched his stomach, and whispered, "Maybe this is the way." He went back to Mama Ifeoma. "What else can I do?" he asked. She nodded. "There's a poor family in the next compound. Their children sleep hungry. If you want the spirit to see you change, share food with them." Obinna frowned. "But I have no food of my own." Mama Ifeoma pointed at her small yam barn. "Take 2 yams, give them away." Obinna's eyes widened. "2 yams? That is too much." "Greed is never satisfied," she replied, "but giving has no measure." With trembling hands, Obinna carried the yams to the family. He placed them on the floor and said, "Eat and be full." The children screamed with joy, and their mother knelt to thank him. That night, Obinna's belly reduced slightly. The swelling was not gone, but it was smaller. He touched it and began to cry, not from pain, but from relief. The next day, he gave away more. He fetched firewood for old men, carried water for widows, and even gave up the little food Ada had left behind. Each act made his belly shrink. The villagers began to whisper, "Is Obinna changing? Has he truly learned?" Even Ada, hearing the news, returned with the children to see for herself. She was shocked to find him weaker, thinner, but more humble. The spirits were waiting for his final test. Word spread that Obinna had changed. No longer did he grab food or sneak into people's pots. Instead, he gave whatever he had, even if it was only firewood or water. The villagers watched him closely. Some believed he was pretending, others said if the spirits are reducing his belly, then he must truly be learning. One evening, the chief priest called him to the shrine again. The whole village followed. Obinna knelt under the iroko tree, trembling. His belly was now almost normal, though still heavy with shame. The priest raised his staff. Spirit of Omahia, here is the man who ate your food. We asked, is he ready to be free? A wind blew, soft but strong. The villagers held their breath. Then the voice of the spirit spoke again. Obinna the stomach, you were greedy. You took from everyone and gave nothing. But now you have begun to learn. You have shared food, water, and labor. Your heart is changing. The curse is lifted. But remember, if you ever return to your old ways, your belly will still do the same thing. At once, Obinna felt his stomach shrink completely. He cried out, pressing his hands to his belly. For the first time in weeks, he felt hunger without pain. The villagers clapped and shouted. Children danced around him, singing new songs. Obinna has learned. Giving makes you free. Stomach that once stole now feeds the family. Ada smiled through tears. She held his hand and whispered, maybe now we can live in peace. From that day, Obinna the stomach was now known as Obinna, not as Obinna the stomach anymore, and as Obinna the giver. He never forgot the lesson that saved his life. The moral of this story is that greed will always destroy a person, no matter how long it takes. But when a man learns to give instead of take, he finds peace, respect, and true wisdom. Thank you for listening to this amazing story. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share for more amazing stories like this. And do not forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Take care and see you in the next story. Bye.